Yo, what up guys, it's Flark, and welcome to the Frost version of the PvP guides for Shadowlands Season 1. So these are going to be very long, and they're going to cover everything from Covenants to Legendaries and everything in between. There's a lot of new systems and a lot of things people are asking about. I should be able to flesh out everything that I can. But as I said in the Unholy video, I've been pushing with a set of IRL friends, guys I've known for a long time, and we've done surprisingly well. We're about 2600 MMR. We were at top 100 for a while. Haven't played in a bit, so we should be able to get back there no problem. And we've been queuing into multi rank 1 players and somehow winning with my IRL buds. It's a pretty crazy season, and you shouldn't look too much into it, but these guys are having a great time and we're having a great push together, and it's also given me the chance to experiment and to try out these things so I can convey the information to you, and I got a very good opportunity to do that. I have done the end of this 2600-ish, 2650 MMR push with Frost, and Frost is very, very good right now. I predicted that 4, 5, 6 months back, and I feel pretty proud about that one. I noted that these two talents, Heartstop and Chillstreak, were so impactful that they made BFA Frost good, even though BFA Frost did no damage with any of its abilities. It was just a Gushing Wound, Heartstop, Chillstreak bot. But now we do damage with our abilities. Obliterate hits extraordinarily hard, and especially if set up well. And it hits extraordinarily hard in burst windows with Chillstreak and Necrolord, A-Bomb's Limb going, and you just have a lot of tools to win games fast, and you still have Heartstop and Chillstreak. Fantastic peels, slows, and movement disruption with Heartstop Delirium, cooldown disruption, and all that good stuff. So essentially it was still what it was in BFA, but now it can actually do damage, which make it even better, and in BFA it was 3500 viable. So good spec. So now let's talk about what to do to get the most out of a good spec. And I think that I've gotten enough experimentation to help you guys in that way. So generally I have these videos, I release them a little later in the season, but people were asking a lot of things a lot of times, and I figured that you guys wanted to, there's a lot of new systems. You wanted to get some sort of semblance of information on them so you could push with me to get the awesome Glad Mount and the fantastic title and all the cool elite sets and all the good stuff that's going on right now. You didn't want to wait around for halfway through the season. You wanted to participate now while it was exciting and fresh, and I understand that. So I played the heck out of it, and I pushed with my buds, and I think I got the information for you guys right now. So let me shut up and start talking about the stuff that you actually care about, starting with itemization. So itemization, stat weights we'll start with. Pretty set in stone for the most part. Versatility, by far the best stat. I went over this in the Unholy DK video. But if you're coming fresh, versatility by far is the best PvP stat in the game. Right now, it was already the definitive PvP stat because it did both damage and survivability, which matters in PvP significantly more than it does in PvE. But also then, you get this. Gladiator's Distinction. Damage and healing benefit increased by 40%. So if you take any stat in a stat weight chart for PvE and you kind of compare them, and they're all pretty close, and you just multiply those numbers, one of those numbers, just one, by 1.4, it is much higher than any of the other numbers. So versatility gets that distinction. Versatility by far, especially in a meta this intense, where you need some survivability, some big rebound heals from Death Strike, and some damage reduction for the one-shots, and it gives you an enormous amount of output, because that increases your damage as well. Versatility, by far your best stat. So the important thing, then, is the other ones, right? Because you knew that going into the video, probably. So, Mastery, Haste, and Crit. Well, Haste and Mastery are very, very close. Crit we can eliminate. Crit is, it feels like it should be good. And big Obliterate crits is kind of staple. And it's not nerfed in PvP anymore. But it's still very bad for Frost. And it's because of this talent. Spoiler on the talent section. We'll get back to this. But Obliteration makes it so every Obliterate will crit during Pillar of Frost because you alternate Obliterate, Frost Strike, Obliterate, Frost Strike. So if every Obliterate crits, and that is our big damage generator, finally, again, and you don't get any benefit from, you can't double crit, and we don't have like the Chaos Bolt effect where you get more damage from crit, then effectively every single one of those guaranteed crits makes your crit obsolete for that window. And Pillar of Frost is when we're killing people. That is our window of damage. That is our window of pressure. So during your most important window, crit loses almost all value. Well, not almost all, but a significant amount of value in that window, right? So if it loses any value, especially a significant one, it's not going to compete with Haste and Mastery that are still extremely impactful during those burst windows. So we've established Verse at the very top and Crit at the bottom. Haste and Mastery right between. And distinguishing between them is not something I think anybody could realistically do. And if they're saying that they have, I think it's a bluff. I'll tell you why. Mastery is great. Increases your frost damage. That's Chill Streak. That's your Killing Machine Obliterates. That's Frost Fever. That's Frostworm's Fury. It's fantastic. A great stat. But our aforementioned obliteration windows are extremely impactful. And remember, you have to rotate a Killing Machine generator, Frost Strike or Howling Blast, into Obliterate during Pillar, and only during Pillar. After Pillar ends, that window is over. So the more generators you can press during this window, the more damage you're going to get by far, because you're going to fit much more Killing Machine Obliterates into that window. And if you can finish with one more extra spender, even if Pillar drops, you still get that big Killing Machine Obliterate, which is where most of the damage is coming from. So haste during that window is extremely impactful. Rune generation, autos during the window, fine. But really, the global cooldown reduction, it's extremely important. So I think, ideally, you would want some mixture of both. Mastery just does flat damage, but if you're not getting enough globals to really fit in 2 more Obliterates, you're losing a significant chunk of damage anyway. So if you can get both, and this max out Verse, then you're good. Now when we're fully Conquest geared out, you're going to be able to choose every stat that you want. And in fact, I've looked at the Conquest Vendor, and what you can do is have main stat Verse on every piece, and then pretty much half haste and half mastery. And then you've got a set. No crit. Crit's not good for those windows. Verse is extremely good for those windows. Mastery is extremely good for the output in those windows. And then enough haste so you can get enough globals off to make those windows more impactful during every burst window. Remember, you want to fit as much pressure as you can without getting CC'd or without running out of generation because you are chains of icing on the way to them, and that kind of spends your runes in ways that PvE does not. So with a full set of Conquest gear, you should be able to create that ideal window. So what I suggest is Verse at the very top, Mastery and Haste side by side. They synergize with each other. There's no reason you should have to have just one. One makes the other better. It's a myth that you need exactly 2 stats. Verse, Mastery, Haste, crit at the very bottom. So you make a Conquest set with Verse, and then a split of Mastery and Haste. Boom, done. Now let's talk about gear. I went over this entire thing in my Unholy video, but I'll do the entire thing again in case you only want to watch one. Ideally, what you want to do for gear is pretty much prioritize that end goal in mind. So eventually you're going to have Conquest gear that trumps everything. All PvE gear, everything. Your Conquest gear is going to trump it all because it's going to have that main stat Verse and the off stat that you choose. But on the way there, if you have a higher item level piece, like a heroic piece with haste or mastery on it, as long as it has Verse, run it. So if you got from where is it? Emissary of War, if you got the Colossal Plate Gauntlets, wear them. If you got this, it has crit, but it has main stat Verse, so wear it. If it has main stat Verse, you're going to wear it, even if it has crit. If you get these legs, lucky man, wear them. If you get this chest, or this back, very well, wear it, right? But well, that's a little frustrating, right? Because it's like, well, PvE then gives you an advantage still. It only gives you an advantage for a short period of time. And titles are awarded at the end of the season. MMR is the most inflated at the end of the season. Everybody who's played a season of World of Warcraft got a higher rating at the end of the season. So what you're trying to do is plan big picture for the final product, which is all Conquest gear with haste and mastery split with verse main stat. But if you have any of those pieces that have verse on them, even if it's an off stat verse, wear it. You'll eventually replace it, but wear it. It'll make you slightly more powerful on the way there. That said, because of Conquest being the best, remember, the problem with BFA is even at the end of everything, PvE gear was still better. So even when you were maxed out on PvP stuff, you still had to go farm PvE gear. It's not the case now. Get high rating, you upgrade this Conquest gear to very, very high item levels, and that's what you're going to run the whole season. Which means when all is said and done, you had to PvP for the PvP gear. And that's a good feeling. So, ideally, how to get there, you talk about a few PvE pieces, maybe you get lucky, maybe you do some heroic rating, maybe you just do the Emissary of War, fine. But also then, the Great Vault, you get 3 choices of PvP gear per week. That's going to always have main stat verse. Pick the one that's the highest Conquest commitment, like the weapon, we'll talk about that in a second, or legs, or chest, or helm, as long as it has haste or mastery on it, right? Haste or mastery, the best one, highest Conquest requirement, that's what you're going to choose. Chest, helm, legs, weapon, any of those. And you can use your Conquest gear, your Conquest currency rather, to fill out the rest of the pieces, and you can select the ones with haste and mastery, and then verse main stat on them. As for the exact path to get there, people are asking, well, what'd you buy? What'd you buy the first week? What'd you buy the second week? Should I save up for my weapon? And they're very frantic about it. They're losing sleep. They're having nightmares. It's in their head, right? I don't think you should fear so much over those choices. So let me show you something. I bought a ring. There's my mastery ring, first mastery, and first haste necklace. Just like I said I was going to do. A little bit of haste, a little mastery, right? These have a ton of versatility on them. Look at that. 165, 147. Jewelry has a ton of secondary stats, and like I said, versatility is fantastic. It's better than it is in PvE by a long shot, maybe by 80%, because of the survivability and because of the 2-set bonus, which means it's very hard to just sim your gear and say, well, this piece is better because of how much better this is in PvP. So I grabbed a ring and a necklace, and I got 25% verse. And when you put in the 2-set, that's like nearly 38% healing done and damage, and 12% damage reduction. And that helps with the survivability meta. It helps. People are getting one shot left and right. So slingshotting, if I take 30k damage and a couple globals, I slingshot back up with Death Strike just like the old days, because I have 40% more healing, and I've taken a ton of damage, so I can slingshot back up. It helps with my Lichborn heals, helps with Sanguination when I run it, helps with every source of healing, Sack Pet, all these sources of healing. It helps with all of that. It helps me take a little bit less damage to the one-shots, so maybe I can live and actually live to get that Death Strike off. And honestly, I haven't been dying that much, so I think it's been working. So that's one path, right? But also, you could save all your Conquest and buy a weapon. You get a big weapon, you get big obliterates, and it feels real good, you do more damage, right? More output. And those are 2 perfectly logical paths, right? Which should kind of show you, instead of being terrified and losing sleep over the fact, well, what did you choose? Oh crap, I chose this. Am I screwed for the season? No, of course not. The end goal for everybody is the same, and you can all get there. But there were 2 fantastically logical paths. I wanted a bunch of verse, and I got it. And I'm queuing into multi-rank 1s with my RL friends, and we're winning games. You could also get a thick weapon and try and one-shot folks with that. Or you could pray that you get your weapon from the Great Vault and just keep filling out pieces to get as much item level as you can with main stat verse. These are all logical. Don't lose sleep. They all work. Just keep filling out big Conquest pieces with haste verse or verse mastery on them from your vault, and fill out as many Conquest pieces as you can. And soon we're all going to reach that point where all those tiny little important changes come together to make a big change, right? So a little change here, a little change there. You're not gonna win 20 more games because you've got a 0.1% difference. But you put in 40.1% differences all together when Covenants and Legendaries and full itemization in every choice that you make in the context of this entire video. And that's when you've got a difference. The end goal. Finally, let's talk about trinkets. This one's easy. I already spoiled it. PvP trinkets. PvP trinkets. The whole season, the whole expansion, every single bit of Shadowlands, you're only going to get more verse, which means this is only going to be more valuable. If you have 60% verse, 40% of 60% is more than 40% of 25%. Who knows how high this is going to go as we get more gem sockets, more item level, and bigger enchants, and epic gems in Shadowlands Season 3 or whatever, right? This only gets more valuable. If it's already this valuable now, it's going to be disgusting in Shadowlands Season 3. So you're never going to take these off. Now, you could be a psychopath like me and run 2 DPS trinkets queuing into multi-rank 1 players, or you could be a regular human being and put on Gladiator's Medallion instead of the Insignia. Now, as Frost, you will always run Badge. It's a 1-minute cooldown. What else is a 1-minute cooldown? Pillar of Frost. You will always run Badge. If you ever take something off for the Medallion, it will be Insignia. You will run Badge and you will run a Medallion. And that's what you probably should do. Because again, you don't have to be a psychopath and run no trinket and just for a little bit extra damage because you're a goober like me. Do as I say, not as I do, run the Medallion. But if you want to be crazy, you can also run double damage trinkets because we have AMS and IBF, and I'm winning all my games in 6 seconds or losing all my games in 6 seconds, so I don't really care about my trinket because I use IBF and AMS as a trinket, and the games are over in 6 seconds. And it's working. I mean, we're getting granted our Glad Mount. That Glad Mount looks sick, and we're really happy about it. But really, for the 99% majority of the population, switch to that setup right here. Look at this. This is beautiful. But, right, Badge, perfect trinket, syncs up with every pillar, absolutely fantastic, and of course, you need the 2-set bonus. Relentless is going to be decent when the meta slows down with human only. Otherwise, for Orc, or every other situation, or if the meta never slows down, always run Medallion. Okay. That's trinkets. There's nothing else to it. You're never going to run a PVE trinket, so there's literally no other choices except for the Stam trinket, which I don't even think I've fully upgraded. You could go full survivability. There's other choices you can use for survivability that we'll talk about in a bit, but if you're playing the full survivability kit, like Pact, and you've got your Sack Pet, and then Transfusion, and then Sanguination, you can also put on your Stam trinket with the Gladiator's Medallion, and you can have even more survivability. That is for all the folks who are like, I literally can't live. I'm playing with pre-made healers. I can't live. I die every game. It's getting frustrating. What do I do? That is part 1 of a bunch of tips and tricks that I will show you if I could say the word. But that is gearing for the most part. Enchants and Runeforges are actually super straightforward, so we can blow through that section. Enchants are versatility, because that's your best stat. Eternal Strength, because that's the highest amount of strength. It's plus 15. You get it right there. Eternal Stats for your chest, because your damage is so high that your damage matters way more than a proc. You get 10 extra strength, and the proc does barely little, and you get 30 extra stamina, and survivability is extremely important in this meta, as we're going to say millions of times over this video. And having stamina is good because we have percentage heals. So it's just good. And then finally, your Cloak enchant is stamina and leech. You do a lot of damage, you heal for some. It can save you sometimes. You're not going to run no enchant, so stamina and leech I think is the best option there. Stamina, leech, 30 stats, eternal strength, obviously verse. That leaves us just with a weapon enchant, a DK specific one, And I think there is, just like Unholy, one output option and two niche options. The output option is Razor Ice instead of Fallen Crusader. I think it is a little known fact, actually, because this nerf was in place so long ago and is not documented anywhere at all. Fallen Crusader is 10% strength proc in PvP, not 15. Can't cross that out, scribble all over it. It is 10% in PvP. They nerfed that a while ago and they never changed it. So that means it is 10% damage in PvP on a proc. And the proc is like 50-60% uptime, so it's like 6% output. While Razor Ice is much higher uptime and does go up to 15%, it does not nerfed in PvP. It's not nerfed in PvP. So you get that 15% frost damage, which is pretty much all of our damage, since Killing Machine is now frost damage for your Obliterates. And you get a little tiny extra damage from Razor Ice. Maybe it's like 1 or 2%. That could be like 15, 17, like that area. So the output from Razor Ice is much higher than the output from Fallen Crusader, though you do get a heal, which is nice. And Strength buff does allow you to get bigger Death Coil heals. Not Death Strike, because that's percentage healing, but Death Coil, sure. So, but really, Razor Ice is the general use one. If you want to prioritize survivability a little bit, don't run Crusader. Run Sanguination or Spell Warding. These are the niche ones that I believe are going to be worthwhile having in your bags on different weapons, so you can swap them in the lobby. Not in the game, because that doesn't work anymore, but in the lobby before when you see the comp. So, when you're talking Sanguination, this is fantastic as a general use survivability one. Like, let's say you just always die to Thug, or you always die to Rat Warrior, and your healer can't save you, and you've never won a game against it, and you're sick of it. This is that setup that I was talking about, where you can be like, all right, Flark, I die. I'm squishy. It's over. I don't know what to do. DK sucks. I don't want to play this anymore. You have the Stamp Trinket. You have Sanguination. We have some talents we're going to add. I'm going to give you a spoiler. Transfusion. A little spoiler. A little taste of it. But this is another key component on that, hey, I don't know how to live. Help me situation. Rune of Sanguination. Huge heal with the Stamp Trinket. Even huger. Gives you a chance for those Death Strikes to come back up and save you. So Sanguination, very good against those teams that are just killing you every time, if you're finding it very hard to live. What you want to make sure you do, though, is analyze your own queue sessions. So let's say you're winning against this comp. Don't just randomly swap to Sanguination, because they do a lot of damage. If you're winning, you're winning. But let's say you're losing to a comp. You see them in the lobby, and you're like, oh my god, it's that Ret Warrior again. These guys have killed me every time. What do we do? That's when you change. That's when you make a situational change. You analyze. I'm not winning this matchup. I have a 25% win rate into this matchup. If I could live, we would win more, and then I would go up in more rating. That's when you make these changes. Similarly, if you're having that same exact problem, but instead of Ret Warrior, it's God Comp, Shadow Priest Mage, or Lock Ellie, or Boomy Ellie, and you're like, well, they just swapped me and killed me. Because some of those rock comps or swap comps generate their win conditions by going your target, your enemy, your partner, for a long period of time. They just go him, they go him, they go him, they go him. Then they swap to you when he pops all of his defensives. And now they swap off the defensive. Since they're casters and they have instants, it's much easier for them to swap, since they don't have to run all the way over to the other guy. So spell cleaves have a tendency to rot the team and then swap off of defensive. Swap to this guy, swap to that guy, swap. He popped wall, swap back. Okay, he used cocoon on that guy. Okay, swap back. Oh, he used bark skin on that guy, swap back. Those kind of things. So if you eliminate their win condition of just swapping off of defensives by making yourself counter this so hard, you swap Spell Warding, then Stamp Trinket, and again, another spoiler, maybe you grab the niche pick Cadaverous Pauler, right, and you take out that win condition, then you could be giving your team a chance to win the game. So let's say you queued into that Ellie Boomy, and you lost every game. you got nothing to lose. You lost every single time you played, right? You did not win any games. So if you put on Spell Warding Cadaverous and they swap to you and it doesn't do anything, and that gives you a chance to recover, and then you have another go and you win in that go, then you won a game that you would not have won. And that's why these niche Runeforges are useful, because you won a game that you wouldn't have won. And that's how you get rating in World of Warcraft, is by finding ways to win games that you weren't winning before. So, Razor Ice, general use damage. Fallen Crusader, slightly worse general use damage. With a heal, it's just worse output. But Sanguination and Spell Warding are niche abilities, one for spell cleaves and one for everything else, where you can survive better and give yourself a chance to win. And that's itemization. That was tough. That was tough. That was a lot of work for not even the bulk of the guide yet. So we're going to have to keep moving along. We've got talents, PvP talents. We've got legendaries and covenants after, and then some playstyles, some comp decisions. It's a lot of things. Let's talk about them. PVE talents. First row. This is going to be nice. It's going to feel good because I can give you solid answers. Inexorable Assault. Cold Heart is nerfed in PvP. You would never want to chains to do damage anyway, because you have to chains off targets to peel them, and chainsing off targets to peel them removes all your stacks and gives you damage on the target you're not hitting, and the damage in PvP is 66 or 70% lower than it is in PvE, so it's trash, 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 trash. Literal trash. Still. Forever. Icy Talents, rather. So bad. It's just attack speed, which is just so unimpactful, and it's uptime reliant, so it's trash. So you're going to use Inexorable Assault. Boom, done, use Inexorable Assault. Easy. This row, Runic Attenuation generally was better, but now because we're so dependent on winning during pillar goes with this talent down here, we'll get to it in a second, and it's so important that we never run dry on runes while we're nuking people in those goes, Murder's Efficiency is just better. Because remember, Obliteration gives you Killing Machine, consuming the Killing Machine gives you a rune, you have tons of generation during that window, you'll never run dry on runes, it's a full rune reset, so to speak, every time you pillar with the two talents working in synergy, and you will always get a max use out of your pillar. So you're going to use Murder's Efficiency. There's two set in stone talents. Blinding Sleet and Asphyxiate. I don't think you even switch to Asphyxiate ever now, because we have our own AoE stun covering that later, which is perfectly set up with Blind, and also Blind helps you set up other goes with your teammates when you don't have absolute zero, and it's a fantastic 5-second peel, and it even puts a slow on them afterwards for 6 seconds, which is just an added benefit to an already good talent that we used all the time. So I don't even know if you ever swap off Blind now. I haven't swapped out here. I have not swapped off Blind since the expansion was released. So therefore, I've never found a situation, even though Asphyxiate still seems like it's situationally good, I have not found myself in a situation where I would ever use it. So that might be a third set in stone talent, Blinding Sleet. Now you've got this line of set in stone talents. Avalanche is a fourth. Frozen Pulse gets outweighed by Avalanche because you get Rhyme Procs from Necrolord, more on that later, which makes Avalanche just gain more value and overall damage over the course of the fight and in burst situations than Frozen Pulse. So it's better in burst and it's better overall. Avalanche, fourth set in stone talent. Frost Scythe is just a meme, it's only good for PvE. It does substitutes for Obliterate. It's terrible, awful. So 4 set in stone talents, the ones that are highlighted right here, all set in stone. Pact and Wraithwalk are the only options here because Permafrost is too slow for a meta this bursty. That will be good when the meta slows down. Death Pact and Permafrost generally swap back and forth. One of them's a meme and the other one's good, and then it turns a meme and the other one's good. They swap back and forth. Right now, Permafrost is too slow for this meta. Wraithwalk is fantastic against Frost Mages and their 9-second roots. Binding Shot and their unbreakable 7-second root, which makes me sick just thinking about it. And that's what it's generally really good at, preventing very long roots. Shaman, 8-second Earth Grab, 7-second Earth Grab. Those things are all very, very good to Wraithwalk. If you're finding yourself in a comp that you just get rooted behind a pillar and can't play the game, use Wraithwalk. If you're dying, use Death Pact. Death Pact is the only thing fast enough in a meta like this to give you another chance to maybe just barely win. I generally play Pact. This row is interesting. I think Glacial Advance is too clunky and slow to ever be good, ever. And like I said, I think Razor Ice is already good. You could technically run Glacial Advance and Fallen Crusader, but again, too clunky, too slow, not good enough. Hypothermic is actually pretty solid and can be macroed into like Pillar and then make it so you are certainly going to get perfect goes off. And also actually works with Death Strike. So it can be a survivability tool, again, if you want to mix it in with that Transfusion, Sanguination, Stam Trinket, Hypothermic Presence package. It's another survivability tool. Gathering is just passive increase to your AoE damage, which is good. This is just your general use output. Hypothermic is your niche utility where you can survive better and get maybe more perfect goes with Obliteration. And Glacial Advance has value there, but it's clunky. This row is very interesting. In fact, it's the only interesting row, because now I was able to give you set in stone talents for every single other row. So pay attention to this. If you feel like you really want the full survivability kit because you're just dying and you're sick of it, pick Hypothermic Presence. If you just want passive, shut your brain off, a little bit extra damage, pick Gathering Storm. And we'll keep a watchful eye on Glacial Advance, which is too clunky right now to see any play. Obliteration is the only talent you'll ever run in this row, ever, through all of Shadowlands. I'm making that prediction now. I will change my mind if the game changes for future guides, but just call it a guess. I predict that at no point during all of the Shadowlands expansion, which is a pretty bold guess, by the way, because generally these talents switch around over the course of expansion, I don't think you will ever swap off Obliteration. Killing Machine got so much value pumped into it during this expansion that Obliteration is just so good. And the other ones are so clunky in PvP. Ice Cap just doesn't have enough value, and Breath of Sindragosa is breath. It drains all your runic. It's disgusting if you get peeled. If you get 7-second rooted by Binding Shot, you lose the game playing breath. It's nerfed in PvP as far as damage goes. It's so clunky. It completely destroys your survivability because you have to spend all your runic power to use it. It is so bad in PvP, making Obliteration the only valuable option. Perfect. So you have so many set in stone talents. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, kind of 6. And then this row is interesting. That gives you some direction. With PvP talents now, I'll give you a little bit more direction. Chill Streak, always. You have a way to set that up by yourself. Again, more on that later, which makes Chill Streak just perpetually always good. 70% slow with massive damage on a 45-second cooldown that will always be up for every single pillar is a must-take. Chill Streak, yes, always. Heartstop Aura, yes, always. I know the game is a little fast, so it seems like Heartstop Aura will not be as useful, but that is just a testament to how freaking good this PvP talent is. Because it's not just long, drawn-out games where their cooldowns go down. It's actually every game, because guess what? Kick and mobility and shorter defensives and rotational cooldowns like Holy Shock and Judgment or Pillar or Remorseless or AMS or Blink or Dash or Fists of Fury or Leg Sweep. All of these tools, even shorter cooldowns, all extended. It throws off everybody's game plan. Even when I queue into enemy Frost DKs, I'm like, oh shit, it's hard stop, it's hard stop. Like, I have a go in 5 seconds, no, it's hard stop, it's hard stop. Every go you have is slowed down. Every defensive you have to rotate into their goes is slowed down. It is the ultimate fulcrum shift ability. You get snowballed pressure just by having this talent equipped. These two talents you'll never swap off of ever, ever, ever in any situation. So that means you have one. Necrotic Aura is the output one. If you need extra output, if you're bursting all in, you're playing an all-in setup, that's what I do. So this is what I always run. If you're playing an all-in setup, I play DK Enhanced HPAL. We all do magical damage. You could just nuke people 8% harder. It's impactful. So if you're playing with a magical user and you want extra damage, Necrotic Aura. But remember, you have utility. Delirium against mages, monks, DH. Mage Blink, Monk Roll, DH Fell Rush. It destroys all of those mobility options. It still does. It did in BFA during my guides, it did in Legion, and it does now. It slaughters all of those. Actually, I don't remember. I know it existed in Legion, but I don't remember. It's gone through a lot of changes, but it certainly did in BFA, and it certainly does now. It shuts down all mobility. If you don't want people to get away from you, Delirium shuts it down. That said, it's not quite as valuable now that you have Necrolord doing the same thing. More on that later. But Delirium's disgusting against mages, and probably we'll still see value as seasons go on and this crazy burst meta slows down. Death Gel is bad. It's like fine, but no, it's not. It's terrible. When you reapply Chains of Ice to put on Death Gel, it takes off your Chains of Ice, and if they have a root break, like a shift, then they just shift off everything anyway. It's just like so not that impactful. And if you're doing it like a grip root, the root breaks from your damage, so it's no different than doing a grip blind, and they don't have any value when you have them both, right? So it's just a worse grip blind, and you don't get extra value for having it an additional to blind, so you'll still run blind, which means it never gets any value. So Death Chill, even though it has so much packed into one talent, none of it's good enough to be playable. Death Chill sucks. Dark Sim, utility. Very powerful to steal Poly and then do a go, but you want to cleave an entire team. So stealing a Poly or a clone doesn't feel quite as good when you could actually just kill them all at the same time. And again, you're giving up a PvP talent for a choice that may or may not be good. I think Dark Sim is better with Unholy than it is Frost, and I have not picked the talent one time, despite, you know, we're going to queue eventually soon, it seems like, at the highest MMR. And I'm never, well, the second highest. Chanimals, he's hard to catch up there, dude. But I'm never going to play it, and I'm sure you can. And maybe we'll see value for it soon, but when you're not stealing G-Pies that are being spammed every second in BFA Season 4, and it's not quite as impactful in this meta, and I've literally never swapped to it, but the utility is all still there. Poly, Fear, Clone. You can steal a lot of impactful things. I just haven't found a use for it. Cadaverous is that niche choice that I said you would pair with Spell Warding if you literally can't live. Again, find out for yourself. If you are dying, and your games are being lost because you were dying, then switch to Cadaverous Baller. Because you want to give yourself a chance to win the game. And sacrifice 8% additional damage to have a chance to win the game, right? If you're not winning the game with this 8% additional damage, then literally become tanky enough that you diffuse an opponent's win condition and you have a chance to get more win conditions on your own. Cadaverous Baller Spell Warding is a really interesting niche pick into spell cleaves where you can't find a way to win. Dead of Winter, on the other hand, is butts. It's the worst thing in the entire game. It's a bad stun with a drawback. It is so bad for a meta like this. It's so unimpactful, and you will never run it. Ever. The end. Transfusion was the Sanguination pairing, right? I said Cadaverous with Spell Warding is your niche pick for surviving against spell cleaves. Transfusion with Sanguination is your niche pick with Hypothermic against surviving against everything else. Rat Warrior, Rogue Mage, Windwalker, DK, right? If you're having trouble surviving, use Transfuse. Dome, as our final PvP talent to talk about, is disgustingly fantastic. It stops all magic damage, so that's not just spell cleaves, but it's also, you know, Frost DK, Unholy DK, even sub-rogues, Shadow Blades, and of course that means Rogue Mage. But it's bugged, so I put this in my last video, but I'll do another shout out to Blizzard. Hello, your ability is bugged, please fix it. Unless this is what you meant for it to do, which is really dumb. It doesn't work on your teammates. When you use this talent, it goes to 80% on you, but stays 20% on them. That can't possibly be what it was supposed to do, but that is what it does as of the last time I checked. So this is going to be really good when it works for all those things that I just said it'd be really good for. But currently it doesn't work. Right now it gives you an 80% wall for yourself, which is great, but Zone is generally one of those team utility abilities, and right now it's not doing that with this talent. So, oops. And that's all your PvP talents. We did it again. Fantastic. That's all talents. So we got to jump right into Covenants and Legendaries, because that is the thick of what you guys are here for. Remember, there are timestamps, so you could have just skipped here. You didn't have to listen to me talk forever and ever. But, here you go. Here's the ticket. Right now, I was originally going to talk about... Let me pull this up, honestly, to give you guys a visual. We need more visuals on these videos. Here's a visual of my Covenant, right? I was originally going to talk about how Night Fae has some value, and then Kyrian has some value, and the Necrolord has some value. Maybe it could be a toss-up. But then the meta happened. And now I don't think there's a reason to do any of that. So, what did I say in my Covenant video before the season was released? I said, Kyrian is well-rounded. It's got good conduits, good survivability, the Vial's very good, it's got a decent Covenant ability, it's not as good as Necrolord, it's decent survivability, great conduits, great paths, and just good all-around Covenant. Then what I said with Necrolord is that it's the best, funnest, most incredibly impactful Covenant ability I've seen with A-Bombs Limb. It's disgusting, it's fantastic. Fleshcraft is not as good as Vial, and your conduit paths aren't quite as good, and they have some problems here and there, like with this, which does nothing, Volatile Solvent, which does absolutely nothing. You can't tell me that doing nothing is a good thing. And that's what I said about him. One was all around, which makes it good for what? A sustained meta. A sustained meta where you need all-around value and constant value to outlast your opponent. And then there is Necrolord, which had an all-in, beautiful, one-shotty, very burst-heavy, extremely disruptive Covenant ability, but not as much else going for it, which is really good for a one-shot meta. And what, pray tell, are we in right now, my boys? If you've played one game of Shadowlands Season 1, you know it's a one-shot meta. So, here's what I'll say. Keep an eye out for maybe Night Fae, maybe a little bit too setup-oriented, maybe it was too gimmicky for the world to see, but definitely Kyrian in Shadowlands 2, Season 2, and Season 3. This expansion doesn't just end in 6 months, so there's going to be... These Covenants are around for a long time. But that said, Shadowlands Season 1 needs Necrolords. And I will concede to that. Now, I said that literally in my guide. I said that's what Necrolord was so good at, and Kyrian was so good at the other thing. But I thought they might not be okay with the meta this bursty. I thought when the first PvP tuning come in, that did come in and nerfed Rogue. Well, I thought that was going to nerf all the one-shots. The incredible damage of Convoke and Ret damage and Ellie one-shots and all of that burst. They were going to tone it back. They didn't. In fact, they doubled down on it, because guess what they did, right? They said, due to the high burst meta of Shadowlands, we are taking the 20% dampening start for 2s and lowering it to 0%. Which means they essentially established, hey, this is the way it's going to be. So that's where I was wrong. I didn't expect them to do that in a million years. But they did, right? They would never nerf the dampening and then nerf damage and then put the dampening back. They're essentially saying this is the way they want it. So that means they didn't do what they generally do, and they doubled down on this crazy, fast, one-shot meta, which means Necrolord does reign supreme in that situation, which is what I said. I just didn't expect it to stay like this. But regardless, there you go. So you're going to go Necrolord. long story short, long story very, very long, actually, let's talk about some stuff in Necrolords. Soulbind, Plague Deviser, Merilith. Don't think the other ones are even close to good. So the Soulbind you are going to be running is Plague Deviser, Merilith. And here's the exact path you are going to take through Plague Deviser, Merilith. You're going to grab this, which is useless. That's, well, remember, one of the reasons why I didn't like this Conduit. Totally worthless, but you're going to grab it because it's the first one. You're going to go down here and you're going to pick up Accelerated Cold. Then you're going to grab Ooze's Frictionless Coating. Then you're going to go here and probably put in Insatiable, but I just had a really high Hardened Bones. Don't worry, you'll put that in later. So Insatiable here. Then you can pick either of these, it doesn't matter. You're going to go down to your second Potency Conduit slot and put in Brutal Grasp, which does a ton of damage. Then you're going to go over to your second Endurance slot and you're going to pick Hardened Bones. Then you're going to grab Ultimate Form and you're going to be complete. Again, Solvent, Accelerated Cold, Frictionless Coating, Insatiable Appetite or Hardened Bones, Plagueborn, Brutal Grasp. Now, the other one you didn't pick, Insatiable Appetite or Hardened Bones, and then Ultimate Form. A reason why this path is so good for a meta like this is because it gives you 2 Burst and 2 Endurance, which is Handling Burst. Finesse is the kind of... That's Finesse. It's Burst Sustained meta. So not only does Necrolord's Covenant abilities matter in a burst window, so does its only value of having a Soulbind, despite having a worthless path talent choice here. You have a much better set of conduits for burst metas. So like I said, Necrolord is the definitive burst meta Covenant, and they've committed to it, so have I, right? So that's the path you're going to take, and those are the Soulbinds you're going to take. And Endurance and Potency are very good for this situation. And that's your Covenants, right? I mean, that's your Conduits, that's your Path, and that's your Covenant. And you know what Necrolord does, and you know how Plague or Fleshcraft works, so that's your Covenant. You got a definitive answer. Didn't think I'd be giving you that, but by far, in a way, on my 2600 MMR push against multi-rank 1 players, that is exactly what I run and what I suggest to run. I believe it wholeheartedly, which puts us on Legendaries. And I'm very excited for how comically short this section is going to be. Let me do it just for effect. Absolute zero. Alright, so anyway, now the next section. I mean, like, that's it. That's all you're gonna run. You cannot get away not running this Legendary. And even though I knew how good it was, I still put like Biting Cold on its tier because Biting Cold was just like really high output. And I was like, oh, that's really good. That's a lot of output for burst windows. Nope, nothing can compare. Absolute Zero is disgusting. Having an AoE stun as Frost is the best thing in the world, bar none. 95% of my games that we have won against these players, I don't think I would have won that game if I didn't have an AoE stun there. Frost having an on-demand AoE stun opens up more comps. It opens up better play in comps that already had an AoE stun. It opens up more setups. It opens up a setup at all. It defines TSG right now. You can grip, blind, absolute zero AoE stun, drop the Kyrian Spirit on the ground, Blade Storm, and cleave the fuck out of them. On a 1 minute and 30 second cooldown, that's not even that bad. For a setup that wins you the game, you can do one, and then God forbid they live that, right? The next one in a minute and 30 seconds, they are done. Right? It enables comps. Like I'm playing DK Enhancement Shaman right now. I have not queued into a single mirror through all of my 400 games. Not one mirror. But the comp is pretty solid because I have an AoE stun. I mean, I'm playing a comp that nobody else plays against BlizzCon contenders. And it's pretty solid because I have an AoE stun. So it is an enabler of every setup. And let's say you already have an AoE setup. Like Windwalker, you gonna swap off this? No. Because what you do is you set up one set of cooldowns for the first one, one set of cooldowns for the next setup in one grip later, and then you win the game in the second one, and there's nothing really that they can do. So let's say you grip sweeped and you committed everything to that go, and you're gonna do it again in a minute. They can, if they live through that go by popping all their defensives as answers, then you're just rotating your offensives with their defensives. Let's say instead you grip, absolute zero stun, chill streak, and then they trinket because they're getting chill streaked and fisted, and he fists, right? So Windwalker fists and Rising Sun Kick, and they have a ton of pressure. But let's say he uses one Storm Earth charge and you don't press Pillar. So you have one Storm Earth, fists, AoE stun, Frostworms hitting them all, and chill streak. That's a ton of damage and a ton of pressure, and they have to commit things to it. And that's your stun DR. 20 seconds later, your death grip is back up, stun DR is off. Now you grip, blind, leg sweep. They don't have trinkets, so it's a 5-second stun they have to sit, and then you use Pillar of Frost. And he used Fist still, and the second Storm Earth charge. So now you have grip, blind, leg sweep, Pillar, Fist of Fury, Storm Earth, and Fire. Another row of extremely damaging cooldowns, and they don't have trinket or defensives. Game over. 20 seconds later. Having two setups when you can bait everything in the first, or even just not even bait it, just get it because of how much pressure you have, and then do it again, is how you win World of Warcraft games. If you're trading your offensives for their defensives, then that's fine for them. They traded what they wanted to trade. But if they're trading your defensives for half of your offensives, and then you do it again in 20 seconds, what do they trade then? Having more consistent goes, having more goes that you can rotate in is extraordinarily impactful and wins you the game. So when you don't have an AoE stun, it's a setup enabler that can win you games that you never would have won. If you do have an AoE stun, it's a second go enabler that can win you games that you never would have won. Absolute Zero is the best legendary in all of Frost's toolkit, and I will never swap off of it unless it gets nerfed, but there's definitely things that they should be nerfing that aren't a 3-second stun. It just happens to be a very good comp enabler for a class that desperately needed an AoE stun. And we got one, so I'll never swap off of it. Here it is. Right there. Never swap off this bad boy. Bracers is why I equipped it, because I have a super necklace and a super ring, and I talked exactly why I grabbed a necklace and a ring earlier in the video. But if you're wondering where you craft legendaries, just craft them in, good strength spots, because they have split stats, right? So for the necklace, it would have like even amounts of haste and verse. But you don't want even amounts of haste and verse. You want way more verse than haste, which is what the Conquest pieces have, right? So for the jewelry, you want to use Conquest and get the max verse possible. And then for legendaries, you want to put them on a strength piece. I didn't recognize this initially in the season, but who cares? I'm telling you right now. Put them in the high strength pieces, save the jewelry for Conquest, and that's how you do it. So that's the legendary you want. That's where you're going to put it. Thumbs up. And that is all the borrowed power systems, covenants, and itemization, everything you could know about Frost DK. So we'll talk a little bit about comps and playstyle and rotation, some of the new abilities, and then we'll call it quits there. I'm going to make a comp tier list sometime later, maybe next week, maybe a week and a half from now. Because I think comps should have their own video. I generally mention them at the end of videos, but there's no way I'm talking for another hour about these things at the end of all of this. So I'd rather just mention it, wet your palate a little bit, and then make an actual, 50-minute tier list video to explain all the comps for Unholy and Frost. And those tier list videos did pretty well, so I'm happy to make another one. But as a quick brief mention, Frost TSG, Frost Windwalker DK, absolutely disgusting. Frost TSG is such god tier. It's so good. Again, grip, blind, absolute zero AoE stun. Drop your Kyrian Spear down on him. Blade Storm, Chill Streak, and oh my god, it's a catastrophe. It's so much AoE damage all in at once. Same with Windwalker. I was talking about it, the setup. Grip, blind, absolute zero, or grip, absolute zero, Chill Streak, Fist of Fury, grip, blind, leg sweep, pillar, Fist of Fury. And you've got Nuki, AoE goes, and they're disgusting, and you have Heartstop to slow their defenses so they can't keep up with it, and it's fantastic. Frost is great for that. Frost can also play with casters. You can play with Boomkin, which has crazy one-shot goes. So remember, now that you have an AoE stun, you can set up things, play with things you weren't able to play with before. Grip, blind, AoE stun on 2 DPS, while you chill streak them in the Frost Worm's Fury stun, and he convokes on that. That's insane. Let's say they're both melee or going him. You grip the healer into both melee, blind, AoE stun. Now they're all triple AoE stunned with a chill streak in your burst window, and they convoke on that. And then they beam, a root beam right out of it, and you get more pseudo CC on top of all that. Frosty K Boomkin. Frosty K Aflock is even good, because you can peel for him so well, and if you do a grip, blind, AoE stun, on chill streak all of them, and then he gets his crazy AoE trained soul, and he gets dots on all 3 of them, he gets UAs on all 3 of them, then he's rotting, and Heartstop is a good rot component, and chill streak, and they're all slowed, and that's a good rot component, and they can't stop the rot, because if they dispel and they're that low, they're instantly dead to the unstable affliction backlash, right? So you can't really stabilize from a go if you're all UA'd up, and they are, because you just stunned them all and blinded them all and slowed them all, which gave your Aflock a chance to get everything off. So you have options now, only because of this, to play both melee cleaves, which are great with it, but also caster cleaves now that you can set up. Remember, when you had a good AoE stun in Legion, DK Destro was really good. And that's a caster, Frost DK Destro. Frost DK can play with casters as long as it can set up goes by itself and nuke people while the caster gets to freely tee off, because not only are you doing damage in that go, you're also peeling for your caster in that go, and it's bimodal like that. So it needed something like this. So Absolute Zero is the enabler for Frost DK to play with casters. And those are the types of comps you would want to play with that. I've talked about setup and playstyle so much, but just to show you, like, remember, the pillar window is so impactful. So you would do that AoE stun, right, on both of them, and you'd have pillar down. And then remember, you just want to rotate Howling Blast procs with Obliterate, and that's so much fucking damage, right? And then when you run out of procs, you just Frost Strike into Obliterate, right? And that's your window. So during pillar, you're spending every global where you have Killing Machine on Obliterate, and every Rhyme proc on Howling Blast, and then you're alternating always. So if you have a Killing Machine, use Obliterate. If you don't, then that means you're off Killing Machine, which means you need to use a Howling Blast Rhyme proc to get the Killing Machine back. Or if you don't have a Rhyme proc, use Frost Strike to get the Killing Machine back. So it's either Obliterate, Frost Strike, Obliterate, Frost Strike, Obliterate, Rhyme proc, Obliterate, Rhyme proc, or some combination of both. And you're just trying to get windows during every pillar, right? You had that AoE stun, grip blind, AoE stun, and then every pillar, you're just trying to get as much of that off as possible while Chill Streak bounces back and forth. It won't be between these guys, but while Chill Streak is going. So that's grip, blind, Absolute Zero, pillar, Chill Streak. You should probably Remorseless before you do this. Honestly, you can Necrolords too. You could probably just pillar, Necrolords, Remorseless, and then grip blind AoE stun, and then just start doing your burst like that. So setting up with pillar and Remorseless and A-Bomb's Limb, and then gripping them into that mess, blind AoE stun, allows you to already be in your burst while you do your setup, and then you can just Rhyme proc from A-Bomb's Limb. You get free Rhyme procs, which is also avalanche damage, which is why you have so much fucking burst during these windows, right? Rhyme proc, Obliterate. Rhyme proc, Obliterate. Frost Strike, Obliterate. Rhyme proc, Obliterate. It's pretty straightforward and really, really, really high damage, and you're gonna love it. As for other tools that we get sack pet, make sure you use that to top yourself. I use it all the time. When you watch my stream, I always say sacking, because it's my last resort, right? You can sack, which is a 25% heal, and then Death Pact, so that is a 75% heal, and then the backlash doesn't feel so bad, because if you're going from 10% to 85%, the backlash is fine because you're still topped. So it gives your healer a chance to catch up. And then make sure you use Lichborn. Lichborn Death Coil heals when you have Pillar going and all those strength procs. Actually make the Lichborn a little higher health. So if somebody's evasion, parried, bubbled, kiting you, and you can't hit anything, make sure you use Lichborn heals. It's much better for Unholy than it is for Frost because they have the 2 free procs. But again, there's still tons of situations where that could be valuable. So don't just rely on pressing Deathstrike over and over. Remember the stuff I talked about in the video where you could put on Emblem and Sanguination and Transfusion and Hypothermic. And you could use Hypothermic to get more Death Coils off. And then Transfusion to get your Death Strikes off. And then Sanguination procs and you heal back up to full. And then you use Sack Pet and Death Pact and you got another 75% heal. Look at all these sources. You have Hypo and Transfuse and then the Sack Pet, Death Pact, full heal, and the Lichborn heal up, and then Sanguination procs, so you heal up while you're Lichborn healing, and then you can rotate through, and Transfusion is a short cooldown, so then you have Transfusion back up, you can do it all again. Don't just think that Death Strike every global is going to save you anymore. Use all of these other tools that they gave you instead, and get a full, well-rounded survivability toolkit. No, you're not going to feel tanky. Yes, you're still going to die. Do you know why? Everybody dies in Shadowlands Season 1. I've played 6-second games against some of the best players in the game. Everybody's squishy, everybody dies. They are squishy. Players that have played 20,000 games, they die in 5 seconds. So you're going to definitely die in 5 seconds. Miscellaneous person on the other side of the screen right now. But that's okay. You can still use your full toolkit to survive as long as possible and try and make them the one who dies first. Because that's all. Just like the tooltip says at the bottom, try and reduce the enemy health bar to 0 before yours does. And I mean, you can still use your toolkit. Everybody dies fast. Stick with it. You're going to be okay. I know it's frustrating to come into the game. Maybe you took a long break, or maybe this is the first time you're playing and you're like, what the hell, dude? I'm dead in 4 seconds. I get it. I thought they were going to nerf damage done, but apparently they doubled down on this burst meta. But hey, it's fast, it's going to build your reflexes, it's going to get your heart pounding. Let's try and stay with it. Watch my stream, that'll be linked at the end of this. We have some crazy one-shots. Maybe, though it's very frustrating to die, it's also that exciting when you global an entire team in 3 seconds because you know you executed a one-shot perfectly. Sometimes these setups can be crazy and really rewarding. So, hey, look, I don't design the game. That's the meta that they went with. I'm just trying to give you guys the best chance to succeed. And I hope that I have. But now I got to stop talking because it's been an hour and 2 minutes. So I'm sorry, guys, but I hope that helped in some way. And good luck in this crazy season. I'll see you next time.